So just to let you know, I'm Jonathan Hurd. The original program or session at this time was OTT versus cable. I promise we're going to be talking a lot about OTT versus cable, but it's actually not that session. It's the next one on a deep dive into the video behavior of US consumers. The conference organizers asked me to take up to a full hour, so I will be flexible on timing. If you have questions, please ask along the way, interrupt, or just dive in, and we'll make it more interactive. I actually reinserted material, thinking, I originally had a half hour, so I reinserted material so that we could have a pretty good discussion with a lot of rich content and findings. So, what we're going to talk about, I was wondering. We at Altman Vilandra do an annual consumer video survey, and this year it was co-sponsored by Epix. And happy to have an Epix person in the room, and there will be others. So feel free to ask questions of me, and we'll get Epix involved in the discussion as well. So we've got a lot of interesting topics to cover. A little background on the survey. We have some findings about pay TV subscribership and lack of subscribership, online video watching, TV everywhere and apps, and then there's something at the end around release windows, which various studios and others are struggling with at this point, given that there are so many different options for when you can release video, what time frame, how much to charge. Very briefly, who is Altman Vilandra? We're a strategy consulting firm focused on technology, media, and telecom. We tend to be very data-driven in our recommendations, and that focus on those industries means that we can get up to speed very quickly. We also have a partner firm in Europe called Solon. And we've been doing this annual consumer video survey since 2010 now, and every year we ask a lot of the same questions. We ask new questions. We retire questions, but the idea is that we're keeping current on consumer behavior around video consumption, and we like to see also what's happening over time, what the trends are over time. As you can see, we covered a lot of different topics in the research. It's a fairly broad look, a 20 to 25-minute survey, and as I mentioned, it was co-sponsored by Epix this year. So we also collaborated with them on the content. So first, let's talk about pay TV subscribership. This slide actually is not from our annual consumer video survey, but it's from SNL Kagan, very similar to what we found in the survey in terms of the rate of TV subscribership or pay TV subscribership. You'll see in the slides that we called it cable TV subscribership because calling it MVPD subscribership may have been a bit difficult for our respondents to understand. But we were very careful to make sure that people who took the survey knew that we were talking about cable TV, telco TV, satellite TV service. So if we look back to 2009, that was the peak year of penetration of pay TV among occupied TV households. And now here we are in 2015. The penetration has dropped from 90.5% to about 83%. And what that means is that if you think about this 9.5% of occupied TV households that don't subscribe for reasons such as, I can't afford it, or I get my video off antenna service, or maybe I just watch DVDs occasionally. That means that there's about 8% of households that are effectively new non-subscribers to pay TV that we can pretty much attribute to use of online video as an alternative. So cord cutting, cord nevering is happening, and it appears to us to be about the rate of 1% a year of households that are not subscribing anymore. When you look at the raw numbers, it's about flat since 2009, but households have been growing. Pay TV subscribership penetration-wise hasn't been keeping up. Now that lack of subscribership is highly driven by age. So you could see among 18 to 24-year-olds and 26 to 34-year-olds, this is based on our survey. You know, we asked, do you subscribe? And have you ever subscribed? And so we've got a bunch of cord nevers out there, obviously much more so in the younger age segments, also more cord cutters. But as you get older, the subscriber penetration does increase. But there are, you know, cord cutters and cord nevers at every age range. So why do people subscribe? We asked, you know, check all of these that you agree with as reasons that you subscribe to cable TV. And the top 2 reasons, by the way, can people in the back read this okay? No? All right. I'll read the top 2 reasons. I can easily find the TV shows and/or movies I want to watch was the #1 reason, tied with I can watch it according to my own timetable whenever I want. When you think about those as the top 2 reasons that people subscribe, they're actually pretty different from what people would have historically said, right? I mean, the electronic program guide for cable wasn't that great, and certainly watching whenever I want, that's a relatively new idea. And also easier to find something to watch, third reason. Live sports, live news, and then the 6th reason below the line is I want to watch new TV episodes when they're first broadcast. So that's right up there, but live viewing in general isn't one of the top drivers. These other ideas of plenty of content out there I can watch on my own timetable are powerful ideas now. We also asked cord nevers, why have you chosen not to subscribe to cable? The top reason, I can access the TV shows and/or movies I want through online services, e.g. Netflix and Hulu. Far and away the biggest reason. So cord nevers are kind of happy the way things are, and affordability is also a factor, 31% saying I cannot afford a cable TV subscription, but it wasn't the top factor which stood out from all the others. We also asked cord cutters, so those who did subscribe but who no longer do, how important were the following factors in your decision to stop subscribing to a cable TV service? And the top 3 reasons revolve around value or online video being enough for my needs. Value, affordability as well. All 3 of those, the major reasons that people have cut the cord. Probably not surprisingly. So we asked people by age range, these are non-subscribers, what is the likelihood that you or your household will subscribe to cable TV 5 years from now? And we found a very similar thing in the last couple of years when we've asked this question, that younger consumers are much more likely to say that, you know, it's likely or very likely that they will be subscribing in 5 years. So the good news here is that it's still an aspirational service for younger consumers, the idea of having cable TV. The bad news is those likely and very likely numbers added together aren't very high. And, you know, once you've lost somebody and they're much older, they're not coming back, almost certainly. And it's probably driven more by affordability than by availability of online video. All right, so that was a brief overview of what's happening with respect to pay TV subscribership. And by the way, again, any questions at any time, raise your hand, interrupt. We can make this as interactive as you'd like. So let's talk about online video. Yes?
So I think it was your first or second slide when you had pay TV subscribers, 2009, describes all the services maybe they once had.
We think this red part here, this new non-subscribers, the fact that it's declined by 8% over this 6-year period, is pretty much all due to online video as a substitute, and that people feel like they have their needs met. Affordability has always been a factor, but at this point, you know, how much, and prices have gone up, of course, so affordability is baked into it, but if there weren't online video as an alternative, you know, we don't think we'd be seeing this much in the way of non-subscribership. So how often do you watch TV shows or movies on the internet? And you can see for the past 5 years that we've done the survey, we've been tracking this by age range. And it's just amazing to see this phenomenon taking over. 4 years ago, 62% of 18 to 24-year-olds and 60% of 25 to 34-year-olds were watching TV shows and movies weekly. And now it's grown in those age ranges, but look what's happened to 55 plus, going from 24% to 60% now. So it has been growing over time. Yes?
Just curious, is this based off of like all internet usage, or is this like based off of like brands or certain services, or like is also including piracy?
This does include piracy. In fact, we broke that out separately. We had free ad supported, paid, as well as pirated. So this includes everything, but it is intentionally focused on longer form, professionally produced content, the way we ask the question around TV shows or movies. Yes?
So I'm sort of approaching this as a layman here. When we look at 55 plus, and it says 60% in 2015, 60% of how often?
So this is weekly. So the way we asked the question was daily, weekly, monthly, rarely, or never. Because we've found when we do these surveys that people are terrible at estimating the number of hours they do something. But if they're in a habit, they kind of know, is it a daily thing, a weekly thing, monthly, et cetera. So that's why we asked the question that way. And these are the people that said either daily or weekly. So what are they watching? How often do you view the following types of TV shows, movies, or other programming through paid or free online video services like Netflix, YouTube, Hulu, iTunes? And these are the people, again, that said either daily or weekly, and we broke it out separately. So not surprisingly, the top two things, TV series and movies. We also have TV series I can only find online, news, and then at the very bottom, short shows I can find only online. But live sports, not so much in terms of online viewing. So this is across kind of all online viewing. Now, what are people watching on mobile devices? It's quite different, actually. As you might suspect, short clips I can only find online are the most frequently viewed thing on a weekly basis. TV series second, and music videos actually third. News and maybe not surprisingly movies, given we're talking about mobile viewing now, drop down considerably. Joel, yeah.
How do you think people are perceiving the question about live sports? Because a tremendous amount of broadband sports now is actually available on demand. All the league pass, anybody watches highlights. It's actually not live, but it's based on live. So is that so? Otherwise, you're sort of totally missing that category.
Yeah, so we have it's way down here on the list in terms of live sports. It might be, but we'll get to something later around awareness of sports. And one of the things we find with sports is it's very bifurcated, much more so than the only other thing where you've got sort of pockets of people that are heavy users and then pockets that are non-users. There's some of that around news as well, like live news video, where there are older people. I actually didn't include the slides, but there's a surprising number of people, 55 plus, that say they watch live news video daily, and then that's the only age range where it's that high. So this bifurcation around sports, bifurcation around news is pretty interesting. So this is a pretty telling, you'll see a lot of age-related behavior. What form of video are you more likely to turn on without having a plan for what you're going to watch? And you can see it's more than half of 18 to 24-year-olds, very small number of 55 plus going to online video as opposed to TV, cable or broadcast. So it's, online video for younger consumers is becoming the go-to thing to do to look for something to watch. we asked how often do you watch TV shows or movies on these paid online video services? And as we all know, Netflix is heavily used, kind of dwarfs everything else. 36% of our survey respondents said that they are watching Netflix at least weekly. So, when a lot of these questions, when we ask about online video viewing, people are associating that with Netflix, and the others are relatively small. The fact that online video service from my cable TV provider is second, along with Amazon Prime and Hulu Plus, is pretty interesting, though. So there are some inroads being made from cable TV providers, and again, we're talking about MVPDs here, that they are also being viewed much more so than they were a few years ago.
Question?
Yes?
You might say this on later slides, but does your organization ask the question of what device they're receiving Netflix or other OTT platforms?
We did ask a lot about devices. I didn't put, I don't think there's anything in this particular presentation about that, but by the way, if any of you have particular questions and we can draw from the research we've done, happy to come up, give me your card or whatever, and we can take a look. Well, offhand, there is a lot of viewing on tablets and smartphones. Those are probably the most two heavily used online categories, along with laptops. Laptops are right up there. So laptops, smartphones, tablets, all frequently used. Devices hooked up to a TV, whether it's a gaming system or a Roku, they're probably next after that. And connected TVs directly are also being used. But in terms of order, laptops, tablets, smartphones, absolutely leading the others. Does that make sense?
No, it does. I'd love to see the empirical data from that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, again, yeah, give me your card and we can get you that data. So Netflix, most heavily used, but again, heavily age-related. So that, what was it, 36%, sorry, breaks out by age range. It's nearly 2/3 of 18 to 24-year-olds say they watch Netflix at least weekly. And it drops off significantly with older audiences. Amazon Prime, a little flatter by age range. Hulu Plus, also fairly skewed by age. So while it's 36%, it is very different by age range. So there's been a lot of talk about account sharing and are most people pirating their Netflix credentials? Well, according to this, and it's probably hard to read, especially for those in the back, but I'll go from the bottom up. I use my own account, is the dark blue. My household subscribes and I use that account is the sort of medium blue. The brown segments are, I use the account of a family member who lives in another household, or I use the account of a friend or someone else. So you could think of this brown as the sort of non-legit account sharing. And then we've got this light blue at the very top using a free trial. So not that much free trial usage. Account sharing, a lot more prevalent, not surprisingly perhaps, among 18 to 24-year-olds. But what's also interesting is 55 plus, 14% say they use the account of a family member who lives in another household, probably their kids, who subscribe to Netflix, and then, hey, mom and dad, try this out. And so they're sharing an account from another household as well. So that's what Netflix looks like in terms of account sharing. Comparing a bunch of new services, some of these, you have to wonder actually if people thought they were using something they're not actually using when we're looking at like Sling TV, for example. But the percentages are still good here. Are you using your own account, somebody else's account, or a free trial? So lots more free trial activity going on. Netflix at 3% is much lower than everyone else. The brown account sharing, 17% of Netflix. It's lower among many of the other services, although HBO Go has a lot of account sharing as well, as does Hulu Plus. So, it's happening, but is it a disaster? No. There's probably a certain amount of this to be expected given the way that these various providers have credentialized their users. So we'll talk a little bit about binge watching. And I think the way we asked this question and the way people responded was interesting. So please indicate the extent to which you agree or disagree with the following statement. I prefer to have every episode of a season released and available for viewing all at the same time. So it's an option. It doesn't mean you have to watch it. And it's interesting that 2/3 of 18 to 24-year-olds agreed, either strongly or just agreed, but only about 1/3 of 55 plus agreed. They're kind of saying, no, don't put it all out there all at once. I might be tempted to watch it or something. So this whole binge watching phenomenon or even the interest in having series released is much more geared toward younger audiences. Similarly this is actually binge watching across a number of services, in this case, not just paid services, but this is all respondents. So the percentage that said they binge watched at least weekly on one of these services. And 21% of respondents said they binge watched on Netflix. So that's a pretty significant number when you think of 1/5 of the US population saying that they binge watch weekly on Netflix. And by the way we called it 3 or more episodes at a single sitting is the way we defined it, which is pretty consistent with the way people in the industry also define binge watching. So binge watching by service by age, we took the top ones. Again, younger people much more likely to say they're binge watching. So 51% of 18 to 24-year-olds say they're binge watching on Netflix at least weekly. Half are 18 to 24-year-olds in the US. The other services, all fairly age-related in terms of binge watching, but at a much lower percent. Yes?
Did you dig into deeper whether those numbers, especially Netflix being so high, has something to do with the way they're offering their content?
We didn't dig into it in the survey, but you're absolutely right that a number of services will tee up the next episode, whether it's YouTube or, I was watching on the elliptical machine this morning, Comcast TV Everywhere, something I had downloaded, and I was asked at the end, as I always am, do you want to watch the next episode? So the user interface itself can definitely contribute to that binge watching.
Well, there's that, but there's also just releasing an entire season.
Exactly, or releasing an entire season, absolutely. But we didn't dig into. Well, it's hard to binge watch something if the entire season hasn't been released. But yeah, we didn't dig into the extent that these various services release everything. But obviously, Netflix pretty much always does, and many of the others, when it is available, they do that as well. Yes. So I saw another question back there. Yes.
Just anecdotally, it was interesting listening to a lot of people who were watching Orange is the New Black or House of Cards. That term of binge watching seemed to really come up. So I imagine in the survey that you didn't look at specific titles, but it just seems that a lot of people started to really talk about it when those titles came out specifically.
Yeah, yep. And the whole phenomenon of releasing, Netflix kind of introduced that, of releasing an entire series all at once, or an entire season all at once. So that definitely contributes to binge watching. Okay, so let's talk about TV Everywhere. Let me just explain the background here. So TV Everywhere, the way we described it in the survey was some cable TV providers allow their users to watch TV shows and movies on devices other than a TV, which is pretty much what TV Everywhere is. We wanted to keep it simple in terms of the definition. And does your cable TV provider offer TV Everywhere? And this is actually the respondents. We took the respondents from the top 10 MVPDs, all of which do offer TV everywhere. And we asked people, does your provider offer it? So the blue area is the people this year who said yes. The medium area is the don't know, and the no's are at the top. All of this should have been solid blue bars. So the dark blue line, the 2015 yes line, is like right at the top of the blue. So that's the percentage this year of people who said yes. Last year, that yellow line is the percent of people that said yes. So it's actually gone down, which is, given that we defined it in the same way, asked the question in the same way, we were interested to see that it dropped in younger consumers. It's actually gone up a little bit in 45 plus. 2013 is the red line, so we thought we were in a good path going from 2013 to 2014, but it's dropped off. And when we looked at it by provider, we did find that some of the providers like Cablevision and Bright House, who have done a lot of advertising around TV everywhere, actually had higher awareness. But the other thing that's interesting about this is how flat it is by age range. So awareness low and relatively the same across age range, roughly high 30s. Yes?
Do you see any differences between providers that have their own portal with the networks available versus companies that don't necessarily have that slow access on the individual sites like CBS or NBC, et cetera?
Yeah, it's a great question. We didn't see any real difference between how aggressively each provider or how rich the offering is from each provider. Like Comcast has a very, very rich TV everywhere offer that through their own brand. But yeah, we didn't see as much difference there. It was more around the extent to which they had advertised it. But even there, our analysis was fairly anecdotal, just based on trying to figure out, well, why is Cablevision high? Why is Bright House high? So how often do you use it? This is the percentage of those who are aware. Yes? Hey. Back. Hi, David.
Do you know the spread, for example? So these are all like 36, 37%. Do you know the range, like the best and the worst?
Yes. It's between the low 30s and low 40s, as I recall, by service provider. But it's also fluctuated a fair amount. Like Cablevision in 2013, I think, was around 50%. So it's bounced around a little year to year, and also by provider. But they're all, it's pretty consistently low across all of them. So how much do people use it? Of those who are aware, and that percentage is at the bottom in the light blue, 70% of 18 to 24-year-olds say they use TV everywhere monthly, and 57% of 25 to 34-year-olds. So decent level of usage among millennials of TV everywhere when they're aware of it. Also interesting about millennials, these are people that do subscribe to cable and whose provider offers it, but who are unaware that their provider offers it. So if how often do you think you would use TV everywhere if your cable provider offered it? Look at millennials. It's roughly 50%, a little higher than 50% of those under age 35 saying, oh, I'd probably use it monthly if my provider offered it. Okay? Well, it's too bad they're not aware of it, because it would be another reason for them to maintain their cable TV subscription. And then also interesting, would you be more likely to consider subscribing to cable TV if you were able to access programs on devices other than a TV? And that's more than half of 18 to 24-year-olds say, yes, I would be more likely to consider subscribing. So the way we look at this is, there are various players out there attempting to create packages targeting millennials. And those packages might have millennials programming for millennials, so you have to license that content. You have to build a service, so there's technology investment, and then you have to market that service, that news service. Meanwhile, here's this service, TV Everywhere. Put more money, especially focused on targeting millennials with TV Everywhere. It might be a better ROI, and it would certainly be sooner than developing some brand new service and then having to market that. Also, look at how people responded to this question, back to that original question on why do you subscribe to cable TV service. Those who are aware of TV Everywhere are much more likely to give reasons, and we highlighted 4 of them here. I can watch according to my own timetable whenever I want. That's 10% more people say that. It lets me watch shows, movies in different rooms, significant increase there. I can watch on devices other than my TV, of course, and I'm not sure what the 8% who are not aware of TV Everywhere were thinking exactly there, but, or I can watch away from home. So TV Everywhere strengthens the value proposition of a cable TV subscription. Yes?
Curious, and full disclosure, I'm technically a millennial, so I'm not bad-mouthing millennials when I say this, but I'm a little interested that they're already paying more. What do you attribute that to?
Lack of awareness building on the part of the traditional pay TV industry is that's what it's hard to reach any other conclusion when you look at this. I mean, I think if we had asked the question, does your pay TV subscription allow you to watch TV shows and movies on your TV? Most people would say yes. So it's such a striking lack of awareness that. Yeah, I agree with you. Even millennials who think they would have explored it and figure out, they're probably exploring Netflix instead and using that as their, effectively their version of TV Everywhere. So it was really interesting also. We asked, how often do you watch TV shows or movies on your cable provider's on-demand service? So this is not online, generally. This is like a video on-demand service. People could have interpreted this as online, but those who are aware of TV Everywhere were 59% more likely to say they watched TV shows or movies on a weekly basis. And so the causality, may be a little in question here. Like the fact that people know their provider offers TV Everywhere doesn't necessarily mean that that's causing them to watch more on the on-demand service. It may be that they're just more engaged. And maybe these more engaged people are the ones that cared enough to even figure out that their provider offered TV Everywhere. But it's also an interesting correlation that they're just generally more engaged with on-demand service as well. And then, why we think that millennials are an especially appropriate target for TV Everywhere. So those who use TV Everywhere to watch all these types of content on devices other than a TV set, the 18 to 34-year-olds, millennials, are doing it much more than 35 plus. The only exception I mentioned earlier, live news being a little bit different. So live news, they're watching 35% more, but generally a lot more usage among millennials. Now, this is why this chart, which says if you are going to use TV Everywhere on your devices, which of these options would be better for you? And at the bottom, we have a single app from your cable TV provider that gives you access to all the shows from channels you subscribe to, or at the top, a separate app for each channel you subscribe to, each giving you access to TV shows from that specific channel. Overwhelmingly, even 18 to 24-year-olds at about 80%, overwhelmingly people would prefer a single app from their cable TV provider. So, looking at this, I think people understand that a world of separate apps out there for everything they want to watch would be an unwieldy experience, and that they would much prefer a single app from their cable TV provider. So it just shows how it's really MVPD's game to lose in terms of bringing the experience together in a way that consumers would like. Yes, Nick? I think lack of awareness, back to that whole, original issue with TV everywhere, people thinking that it isn't there. Yes?
Along the same lines, did you ever ask any trade-off questions? So, this is fine, but it costs money because you have to subscribe to the cable package, and it's a cost-benefit sort of equation in most people's mind, and most of these are done. Most of the questions are absent that.
It's a great point. We do choice-based conjoint very frequently for a lot of our projects. In fact, we have one in here that doesn't relate to that choice, but it is a great point that if you're paying for a cable TV subscription, then you get TV everywhere as a benefit of it. I guess that's one reason we kept this question in the realm of TV everywhere, as opposed to, would you rather. And we asked this question just of cable TV subscribers, not everybody, because you're absolutely right. The choice of, do I even want to subscribe to cable, knowing all that it offers, I may still pick, given the cost-benefit trade-off, I may just stick with Netflix and ad-supported websites, et cetera. That's a great point. Yes?
On market, cable companies were late coming to the game for TV. Netflix, led the way.
Yep.
Once people have that thing going.
It's a great point. Netflix's early lead and their ubiquity is a huge advantage for them. Exactly. Yep. Yes.
I was just going to ask, maybe in the future, to see whether your 98% would say HBO Go is better. So I think you have a question there that basically gives you the answer.
Yeah, you're right that we asked it in the context of TV everywhere, and we asked it. We didn't say a single app from someone. We said a single app from your cable TV provider. If we had said a single app from someone, we might have gotten a higher percentage. Or if we picked a specific brand or specific provider, that might have also varied quite a bit. But it's a good point. We're seeing what people thought specifically about TV everywhere here. So let's talk about apps. So we asked people, and definitely can't see this in the back, sorry about that, but I'll go down the list. What are your top 5 favorite cable TV or broadcast channels? So the top ones, not surprisingly, are ABC, CBS, NBC. Then going down from there, the History Channel, Discovery Channel, Fox, ESPN, Food Network, HGTV, TNT, etc. Comedy Central is actually 18% of people said that was in their top 5. So we asked this question to get a sense of how engaged people were and how aware they were of streaming and apps from these various providers.
This is across all age groups?
Across all age groups, and it does vary significantly by age. In fact, okay, I didn't put it in here, but the major networks are heavily age skewed. Less so with Discovery Channel. Fox actually has almost no age skew, which is pretty interesting. So which of your favorite channels, so people saw the top 5 that they selected as their favorites, which of your favorites makes video streaming available online? And it was 51% for ESPN, everybody else below 50% awareness. Again, and these are people's favorite channels. So there's a lack of awareness. A lot of don't knows here, a few flat out knows. But these various brands have some work to do on making people aware that they have video streaming online. We also asked which of your favorite channels has a mobile device video app. Again, ESPN, 54% awareness. The best everyone else does is, a third or so. Fox Sports, CNN, and it goes down from there. So, similar to TV everywhere, there's a lot of players out there with video streaming capability and apps, and people don't know about it. We also asked which of your favorite channels apps have you downloaded? So this is a percent of all respondents. 41% of 18 to 24-year-olds have downloaded at least one app. But across all of this, it's 30%. So 70% of respondents have not downloaded any mobile apps. And so, there's a fair amount, again, of not just awareness that the app exists, but actually trialing it. A lot of work to do there. Okay, any questions about that part, the last section? All right. The release windows optimization section here is interesting, in some ways more of an example of proof of concept. But we focused it on movies. And we used, as I mentioned, a choice-based conjoint, which, if you're not familiar with it, it's a great survey technique for pricing strategy, product roadmaps, et cetera. But the situation we set up was, imagine you are interested in seeing an upcoming movie. The movie is expected to be one of the biggest hits of the summer and has received positive reception from critics. In addition, assume that you already pay any necessary monthly subscriptions for video service. So which of the following video viewing situations would you prefer to watch the movie? And we had various attributes, like who's the provider, how long do you have to wait after the movie premiere, how are you going to own it or rent it, what's the price, what device are you going to watch it on, video quality, and then are extras available? So just to show you the full list of attributes. So the attributes, as they're called, are across the top. So provider's an attribute, time after premiere, et cetera. And then the levels are the bullet points under the attribute. So provider, we gave people a choice of watching it in the theater, on physical media, from their cable operator, and there we substituted their name of their provider, Netflix, iTunes, et cetera. We even included Facebook. One of our clients thought it would be interesting to see how they did. And we included pirated as an option. And then you could see various times after the movie premiere, price, what device you could watch it on. And we made it individual choices. So sometimes when we do this, we'll layer them on. So you could watch on TV, TV and laptop, TV, laptop, tablet, et cetera. But we kept them discrete because there are services coming out now that are just focused on one device. Video quality, SD, HD, or 4K. And we actually did put wording in the survey that says, imagine you can watch 4K on any of your devices. And then extras available, none, director's commentary, et cetera. Because there are some people thinking, well, movies, when you put them on Netflix or whatever, they lose some of that rich value that's in physical media that you get. And how can we recreate that experience? So a typical choice screen looked something like this. We showed like 3 choices, and on the left you could see you could watch in the theater 12 months later, interestingly. So there are choices that sort of don't make sense in today's world. They're possible, right? I could go and watch it 12 months later in a theater, pay $9, and maybe I'm sitting through some star and director profiles while I'm watching it. Hulu on premiere day, rent, and then Netflix. So you ask enough combinations of all these different options, and then you can disaggregate the price elasticity. You can get the utility of individual levels. And so this is how it turned out. And this is across all respondents. So higher on the page is better from a utility perspective. So Netflix finished at the top, followed really closely by cable. And again, that was the brand of their own individual provider substituted in, followed really closely by theater. Physical media came next, then Amazon, YouTube, Hulu, et cetera. Pirated, fortunately, at the very bottom, and Facebook also kind of the least valued over-the-top brand. Price, again, higher in the page is better, so people would prefer free. Time after premiere, the more recent after premiere, the better. So you could see it dropping off down to 12 months. On device, TV was at the top by a fair margin. Laptop tablet, desktop PC, and smartphone way at the bottom. Like the idea of watching a movie on a smartphone is the least valued. Yes?
How is something like Chromecast characterized? Is it under TV or mobile?
It's a great question. We would have assumed people thought TV in this case because that's what they're watching it on, but we didn't say, imagine you have to hook up a device to your TV in order to do this. We just focused it on the screen. But that's a good point. I mean, there are various levels of pain people might have to go through to get something actually on their TV set. And then extras available, none was the top option. So people actually didn't want extras. There was, I didn't include the slide, but there was a really interesting age-related preference for example, film critics analysis. Younger people liked that a lot. Older people wanted no part of it at all. Bloopers were a little more preferred by younger people, but overall, those extras are really not adding a whole lot of value according to survey respondents to the experience. HD finished actually slightly ahead of 4K, and OWN finished slightly ahead of Rent, but there's not a whole lot of added value, at least for movies, that people think of the idea of owning a movie versus renting it. So how many times are you actually going to watch the movie? And then this is a kind of how someone might actually use that information on the previous slide. Let's say you were thinking about changing the pricing of electronic sell-through. So right now, the average electronic sell-through price is $11. And the share of viewing that happens, that bottom region is theatrical viewing. The middle, that 3% is transactional VOD. Then physical media, that 14%. Still 14% of movie viewing is on DVDs and Blu-ray discs. SVOD, about 37% of viewing there. And then 4% of electronic sell-through. But as you decrease the price, so the x-axis here is price, as you decrease price, electronic sell-through eats into the other forms of viewing in terms of consumer preference. And if you look at electronic sell-through on the left at $11, as you lower the price, you could see this is kind of taking that area of the previous slide and showing what it actually looks like in terms of share on the left. And on the right-hand side, if you multiply that price by the volume, you end up with, here's where revenue is maximized. And so revenue is maximized at about $4. Now, would a studio actually price on a wholesale basis so that EST providers could make money selling at that price? No. I mean, that would actually cannibalize a lot of viewing and overall probably wouldn't be the best way to price across various media. But this kind of shows the types of analyses that those in the value chain are doing when they think about how do we price our own individual offers, how do we price across a portfolio of options, et cetera. And then one last analysis was share of preference by for EST versus others by release timing. So this time on the x-axis, we have the delay after the theatrical premiere of the movie's availability. So you get some increase in share of preference by moving the window earlier, but nowhere near as much of a shift as you get from making price changes. So that's the set of slides I brought. Any questions? Or any other questions? Yes?
Yeah, just going back to the beginning about cord cutting, I saw a survey last week that said cord cutting has now plateaued and is not growing anymore. I mean, do you see any signs of that?
No, we saw it going up by about a percentage per year. And this was a 3,500 respondent survey. It's hard to measure. I mean, you need a lot of survey respondents, and you need a long period of time if you're trying to track a trend there. It also depends on how you ask the question and what time of the year you ask it. So we've done the survey now in July every year. So hopefully there's some consistency there, but you have people canceling subscriptions when they, move away from their summer home or other behavior like that. So I don't think it's plateauing, but what will drive it in the future is, what do content licensing rights look like, and what happens to the average price of a cable TV subscription. There's a lot of different scenarios, and at some point it's going to get to the level where there are changes made, and even now there are some providers offering skinnier bundles so that they're more affordable. Yes? Yeah, we didn't ask about DVR usage. Well, actually we did, but not for this, not in any of the slides we put up here. And historically, one of the things that I have seen about DVR usage that was interesting, it was younger people use DVRs less than older people do. And, but other than that, I think that I don't think there's a lot of change or surprises with respect to DVR usage. Yes?
Did you look at all at the importance or lack of importance around the ability for offline viewing for TV everywhere?
That's a great question. I think downloading is an opportunity. Being able to download and watch is certainly affected my personal behavior. When we did this survey last year, the trade-off instrument we used at the end, one of the levels was streaming only, downloading only, or streaming and downloading. And adding downloading onto streaming enhanced the, by a smallish margin, but it did enhance the utility of the TV Everywhere experience. All right, well, thank you. Oh, wait, one more question, yes.
The options you put in for EST in the last one, was it the understanding that those were pretty similar to what sort of proxy for what a DVD would have been, both for the price and window? Because DVD wasn't included as an option.
We did have DVD as an option there, and it was in the, sorry. Yeah, so DVD Blu-ray is that 14% there. So it's a pretty significant amount of viewing is still done on physical media. So much more so than electronic sell-through at this point. All right, well, thank you very much for attending. Please give me your card if you have any questions.